Now to our next story. You know, Nigeria has experienced a total of, wait for it, 46 grid collapses, I should say, spanning the period between 2017 and 2023. The recent grid collapse came after the nation's power grid had achieved uninterrupted stability for over 400 consecutive days. Makes you wonder if uninterrupted power supply in my country is achievable, Dotun.
It is, of course. We've always said it. This thing is not rocket science. It's not. It's just for us to be able to put the things that we need in place. And then we have people who are committed to running it. For instance, some years back, we were told that it was not possible for the average Nigerian to have a mobile phone.
Oh, yeah.
That has been demystified. We were told when the big two came that it was impossible to have anything less than per minute billing. That has been demystified. So it means this thing is not rocket science. It's a matter of how we apply ourselves sincerely to it. Look at when privatization was done and all this discourse were put in place. It was a lot of crisis because those who were government workers were trying to bring in the government mentality of running business into this discourse. So they did not want any form of reform. They wanted to continue the old way, where they will be collecting money into their own pockets.
Under the guise of estimated billing. And
yes, and apart from that, even the estimated billing, they are not even allowing customers to go and pay into the pocket, into the coffers of government. They will rather disconnect, you give them some tips, they reconnect you, in another few months they come for the tips, and on it goes. That is why we found out that most of these things never worked in the early days.
Okay.
Now we're at a point where we can see that things can work. People are getting prepaid meters. But the challenges persist. The discos are claiming that they are not getting sometimes enough from the generating companies. The generating companies are saying, okay, we have up to sometimes 8,000 to wheel out. But we don't have the access to wheel it because we have limited access. So we produce, but we can't
transmit. Okay.
So is it rocket science when we have countries in this same Africa that will claim to be better than like South Africa with more than enough?
And I hear South Africa has an extra 40,000
just there
megawatts
on their own.
The talk is about many countries not using a grid. You know, what do they mean?
No using. There has to
sticking with the national grid is outdated. I hear something like that.
No, you have to have other sources of electricity generation off-grid solutions.
Okay.
Talking about solar, talking about wind, you know. Coal. South Africa, for example, relies on coal. Brazil relies on hydro, you know. And Brazil generates so much electricity, in excess of 100,000 megawatts. You know, South Africa does more than 40,000 megawatts.
Yeah.
Largely from coal. So we will get there. We'll get there, and the president should be ready to take advice. That's why we have an expert that we brought on the show today. They need to listen to such people. What can we do? I believe that if we do that, we'll get there.
Okay, I hear we must join a gentleman in Abuja who knows more about what we're discussing. So joining us for more discussion on this issue is the CEO of Sage Consulting and Communications, Bode Fadikwe. He is also a power sector policy analyst and communications specialist. Mr. Fadikwe, I thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much. Frankly, I have enjoyed the discussion from you gentlemen, and I'm really excited that I have the opportunity to be part of this show this evening. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, so what new thing can you tell us here?
Yes. Maybe I should backflip a little bit to the one on the police, where I think it's Egbon Babajide that talked about the need to be more security conscious about this country. I think that same comment applies to the power sector with specific reference to the transmission company of Nigeria. And I'm happy that you gave a cue with the issue of the over 400 days stability in the grid, and then the comment that it is not rocket science that we can do it. Now, up to about 13th or 14th of last month, the grid was stable for over 400 days, specifically for 421 days. And then all of a sudden, we saw collapse first day, then about 2 days later, another one followed almost immediately. And people began to have concern about the reason why that kind of situation should occur. Now, there were hunches that it could be some other factors, but about 2 days ago, or was it yesterday, the former Minister of Power, Professor Batinaji, came out to specifically say that those who have generators, or those who sell generators and diesel, that they are one of those who are fighting against a stable sector, a stable power sector. So what does this mean? It means that the hunches that we had concerning the collapse of the grid last month, we can now say confidently that it is not just mere hunches. There is clear evidence to show that it may have been as a result of sabotage. And because if transmission can maintain the grid for over 400 days, which was unprecedented in the history of the privatization we started 2013. In any case, privatization is 10 years this year. In another 1 or 2 weeks, we will be celebrating the 10th year anniversary of privatization. And for over 400 days, transmission was able to keep the grid from collapsing. Then just 2 days, just after they announced that we are celebrating over 400 days of grid stability, it began to fail again. The conventional wisdom in Yoruba saying is that the witch cried yesterday and the baby died today. Who else will you hold responsible for the death of the baby, if not the witch? So, what that means to me, as somebody who is a power sector observer, I've been in this business with all sense of humility for close to 4 decades. So, I have seen the history of the sector very closely. I think very strongly that what happened last month is not just a mere coincidence or obsolescence of the grid or outdated equipment or some officials not doing the amount and quality of work they are supposed to do, like some references have been made about the police, but just because there are also some people who are trying to ensure that, like the proverbial king's horse in Oyo, there are those who are looking for it to kill it. There are those who are looking for it to keep it. There are those who are even praying that it shouldn't come up at all. A functional power sector will do this country better. And I'm happy that we have a president who is very passionate about the sector. He tried to do it in Lagos. Unfortunately, national and subnational politics did not allow that to come up. But right now is at the center. We are expecting that we will cover more mileages now that is there.
Let me ask you this question. In the past, we've had grid collapses arising from inadequate supply of gas constraints leading to grid collapse. The last few grid collapses that we had, what really was responsible? Because that will lead us to whether indeed we can believe that sabotage played a part. What was responsible? Was gas constraint an issue at all? What really caused the collapse?
Now, what happened in the one that happened in September is that there was a fire outbreak. Now, I won't tell you specifically right now that this is what happened. There is still that suspicion because an investigation team was set up by the Honorable Minister, Chief Adebayo Adelabu, to investigate what actually happened. Remember, transmission is still a baby of the federal government, 100% ownership. So the minister has to take that responsibility alongside the MD of TCN and the officials of TCN. But what actually happened was that there was a fire outbreak on the Kainji Jeba 330 kV line. And that led to the tripping. Now, for there to be grid collapse, is either you are losing load at the distribution end, there is a sudden drop of load, or there is also a sudden drop of load at the generation end, or there is a tripping on the transmission line. Those are fundamentals that can bring about a grid collapse. When the load that is lost at generation is so high that it affects the frequency at 50 hertz, then there will be a grid outage. The same thing when it is above 50 hertz, the machines will start complaining, and unless there is an intervention, there may be a greater problem, like you have in Ikeja West. Like for those who are familiar with Abuja here, like you have in Katampe, in Abuja here, and several other locations like that. So there was a fire outbreak on the Kainji Jeba 330 kV line that led to that grid outage. The second one was at Brining Kebbi. Again, it was fire. And those two facilities, the Kainji Jeba and the Brining Kebbi, they feed Niger Republic. While we are not saying that there is any issue coming from the Niger Republic, but we are also open to conversations around the fact that the political environment before now has not been a very friendly one. And if the lines feeding the two facilities, feeding that same direction, is now coming under that kind of experience, fire outbreak the first time, fire outbreak the second time, then you want to start asking questions. Why is it that it is only from that area? Because since after that time, there has not been any fire outbreak again. And it's almost a month. If it is a question of equipment.
Thank you, Brother.
Go ahead, sir.
On a final note, where do we go from here? Is there hope?
Hope. There is hope. Like I said, the power sector is 10 years. Other sectors, the distribution and the generation. Generation says we have gotten up to 14,000 megawatts that we can push into the grid. Certain factors make it a little bit difficult for us to push it into the grid. One, there is also the issue of gas constraint. We know the politics around gas globally today. At the other end of it is the DISCO end of it. For DISCOs, there is what is called the Day Ahead Nomination, DAN. They determine what load they are going to give to customers each day. At the middle of this conversation is the transmission. Transmission can carry up to 8,000 megawatts, 8,500 megawatts at any point in time, depending on what is happening from those two extremes. So for me, where do we go from here? Let every part of the value chain continue to develop. And I love the optimism that has been expressed on this program, that it is not rocket science. We can get there. Let all the members of the value chain, it's a tripod, let them run the race as it is normal. Transmission, I know clearly, is running the race. For instance, in Lekki, they have put a 2x300 MVA transformer there. In Alagbon 2, they have also put some, and all over the country, they are installing facilities here and there, so that they can get ready. Remember, we have this new power sector act, which is the Electricity Act 2023 that was signed into law by Mr. President 11 days after he got into office. That has also given the states the impetus to invest in the sector. So the hope is there. We are confident that God helping us with the kind of president we have,
thank you,
we
buddy.
should be able to make better progress
Thank
than
you,
we have
buddy.
made in
Thank
the
you,
last 10
buddy.
years.
Thank you. That's Bode Fadikwe, by definition, the CEO, Sage Consulting and Communications. Okay, gentlemen, so there's hope.
There is hope.
Yes.
There's hope.
It's good to hear
Okay.
that there is hope, because I don't want to be in a country where there is no
No
hope.
hope.
Oh, okay. All right, we must pack it all up and go, but not before thanking you, the viewer, for being there for us. And of course, the backroom boys are saying thanks for listening too and watching too. We're out of here. Jide, many thanks for your time.
Thanks.
Dotun,
Jokes.
many thanks for your time too.
Thank you for having me, sir.